It's amazing. So welcome, Cyndi.
Thank you. Thank you. I try not to argue. I know it was argumenting, but no.
So welcome. So first I want to share that we had a little trouble getting on together because I've been trying to get this together for a couple of weeks and then, not following through. I'm like, let's just do it. Let's just do it right now. And it's the full moon tonight.
Mm-hmm. Good energy.
Yeah, I was reading some interesting astrological things that are going on today, and I was lighting my dragon incense, and it reminded me of a story of when I taught my niece the word ambiance. Like, why are we lighting candles for ambiance? And then she's like, Grandma, you can't blow out the candles. We need it for ambiance.
Oh, that's so cute.
So, a couple months ago, I've been coming. How long have I been coming to you? It's been like 10 years.
I think it could easily have been 10 years. Yes, It's been a long time, on and off.
So I've seen all the different things that
you have.
Because I'm like, okay, let's do this now. And let's do this. And recently I threw out my back from an injury from a couple years ago. And I tried so many things, but the body is physical and energetic. And it wasn't until we added this extra energetic component that I actually started to get some relief, So a lot of my clients have been asking me, what is it that you were doing?
Well, about a year ago or so, I injured myself really, really bad. I was on my way to a weekend class on stones because about a year and a half before that, I always loved stones and crystals. I thought they were amazing and pretty. Mm-hmm. And I thought maybe there was something to it, but come on, I mean, they're rocks and stones. So I went to visit a friend. Now we're going back 2 years, and she's brilliant. Oh my God, she's a mathematician. She's into science, and she sort of gave me a crystal awakening, and showed me how the crystals hold a frequency, which kind of, by then, we all know that we're made of all frequencies, but that crystals frequencies can sort of influence ours. So I took this stone class down in North Carolina at a place called Vesica Institute. And I stepped off the plane and literally went into the splits and went down into my hip. I slipped. I moved, just stepping my foot forward. That foot went forward, the other went back. And I had to be helped up. It was excruciating. But I'm a sort of, okay, keep moving through, right? And I got to the class that night. I sat there for 2 hours. And when I got up mid-break to go to the bathroom, I couldn't walk. I mean, I could take tiny little inch steps, and I made my way to the bathroom and I came back and I was sitting next to my friend, my partner, and I went, I think I have to go to the ER. Maybe I broke my hip. And I don't know what they're going to do if I broke my hip, but I think I may have broke my hip. So he said, oh, no. And he said, he got a pendulum of all things. It's called a 28 dial pendulum. And he said, let me try this on you. So I sat back and thought, he's putting a pendulum over a hip. Maybe it'll work, maybe not, whatever. Okay. And I just closed my eyes and I let it happen. And about a couple of minutes into it, I thought, I think it's throbbing less, but that could be the, placebo, but okay, I think it's throbbing less. He goes, do you feel anything? And I went, funny, you should say, I think it's throbbing less. And he said, no, open your eyes. And so I opened my eyes enough to see the pendulum slow down and come to a stop. And when a pendulum comes to a stop in this kind of work, it goes from a circle to a back and forth motion. And I went, cool. Well, the class started and I went through the rest of the class. And when I got up, I had a full gait. All the pain wasn't totally gone, but I could move, I could walk. And I thought, nope, not going to the ER. And told him I would take him out to lunch for the free treatment. And wasn't exactly a free treatment because it ended up costing me lots of money because I thought I have to learn what this technology is. I have to figure this out, so tens of thousands of dollars later, I have been trained and figured out what it was. So the foundation of it is in a subject called biogeometry. The founder of biogeometry his name is Ibrahim Karim. He is out of Egypt. This is all based on ancient Egypt techniques. And he is, he's brought back ancient techniques and also birthed a new science. And that is the science of the physics of quality, which is hard to wrap your head around, I think sometimes. It was for me, but we know we're all frequency. We know that that we're light beings. We know that our energy, or that our body, our physical body, is an open system. We breathe air in. When we breathe air out, we affect that system. We take food in, food comes out. We have an open energy system that we work with. And as such, there are waves coming off it. Everything has waves, compression waves. There's two types, but compression waves is the one we're talking about. The shape of something, just because it is that shape, sets off a certain amount of waves. Think about, and Dr. Karim talks about this all the time, a boat going through the water. As it goes through, most of us, I think, have been on a boat. As it cuts through the water, you see one side is clockwise, the other side is counterclockwise. It's creating waves, and those waves are creating more ripples and out, right? This science that I'm working with, and what I did with you, works with that energetic. Now, combine that though, because another thing that I did with you is we looked to see what plane this issue was originating in. Right? So lots of people give talk to the physical, the vitality, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual planes. Dr. Karim has given us tools to measure, because think about it, emotions can create things in the physical. We all know that, right? People get heartbroken and they truly have a heart attack or things like that. So it's really helpful. We're in such a particle-based medicine, like everything's physical, right? That's what Western medicine is. Everything's physical, and if it's doing something, push it to do something else. If you have symptoms, all that stuff. And what if the origin of the disturbance isn't on the physical plane at all? And that was a huge motivator as well to go get this training, because I wanted that skill to be able to take a person's witness, which you have given me, and even remotely be able to connect to the field that your DNA, that your body is giving off, that your, not just body, your being is giving off, and then test to see where the origin is. And I believe, if you don't mind me sharing, because I want to hold privacy, is that okay?
Yeah, go
if
ahead.
I share what happened?
My
Okay.
consent.
I'll try to be extremely discreet. I will be extremely discreet. So the issue that you had with your injury wasn't showing up anywhere in the physical, even though you were feeling it in the physical plane. So once we determined, and I can't remember exactly, I think there was some on the emotional plane, but I think there might have been higher planes where there were some disturbances. Once we address the disturbances, and I do that with stones, that's where the stones come in. That's one of the ways I do it. There's a plethora of ways to address the disturbances. In biogeometry, there's a thing called biosignatures, where you reintroduce to the energy body the subtle flow of energy, say through, like for me right now, I'm working on my lower back, and I'm reminding my energy body how energy flows through my lower back. And it's crazy. It actually helps. It does. It's such a cool new science. So I think one of the things that happened with us also is when we started to look at the emotional plane and some of the things that that might help it, we also went into something else that I'm doing now in my practice. It's called self-questing, and it's parts work. Some people would call it soul fragment work or fragment work. I was trained by someone who has perfected the process of finding consciousness and reintegrating consciousness that has fragmented off or essentially assumed a nature or a frequency from a trauma that the part is thinks it's helping and protecting, and generally it's running our tape. So when any of us are out there going, darn it, my sister really pissed me off, and I don't want to feel this way, and I don't want to react to her this way, and yet I can't hardly not do this, right? Well, that's not me. That's a part. That's a part of me, of my consciousness, but the part has taken control of my behavior. So there's a really beautiful, elegant process to identify the part, especially when we have a trigger, but identify the part, work with the part. And there's like I said, it's an elegant process. These parts of our consciousness that really do want to be cleared, because we're all looking for unification. We're all looking for wholeness and oneness and wellness. And we have our strength in that balance. When the part, that unconscious, subconscious part, hears several different pieces of information, because sometimes the parts don't want to integrate. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that part of our consciousness says, no, I need to be here. I'm protecting you from, fill in the blank. Some parts of our own consciousness have been there so long that they're not even aware that we exist, which is a crazy thing. You go into the part, you start investigating because we have a conversation with it, and we find out that the part doesn't even know you exist in 2021. And it's like, wait a minute, you're the one that's triggering me, and I'm having all these reactions, including that forming process of, say, a pain in my body. And you don't even know I exist. So that's kind of another conversation. And self-questing has changed my life for sure, because I've been through it and continue to work with it, which is why I went and got trained in it, because my life is so different than it was even 2 years ago. I just don't have the same triggers. Not that I don't still have triggers, because I do, but it's a process, and it's different for everybody. Some people have hundreds of parts, and other people do this process 2 or 3 times and they're good.
That must be nice for them, because we've already done it a few times.
Oh, yeah.
First question, do you think we would be able to do a small part with me now so people can see what we're talking about?
It's a little more difficult, because from your work, the parts come up when they want to come up, not when we want them to come up, right? No. And so a little tough, but what I can tell, we can kind of go through that process. So the process is, first thing you do is identify the part as, okay, I'll use an example of somebody I was working with this morning. Okay. She was so angry. She said, I was so enraged that I thought I couldn't breathe. That's how mad I was. Well, that tells me that's a part screaming to be worked with, because she felt it in her physical body. She didn't feel in control, right? And it's like, oh my God, I wanted to kill somebody. I couldn't breathe. The rage had just taken her over. The pattern was running, the loop, the tape, whatever. So the first thing we did was this part was easy. We looked for a focal point. And some parts have a focal point inside the body. And for her, it was like throat and chest. And some parts feel like the air around you. Some parts are so huge that there's no focal point in your body, because they're just existence, right? Those are really big, really big. So first thing we do is identify it as a part, let it know that we want the conversation. We find out, is it just this person's consciousness, or their other consciousness? Because think about it, consciousness is also a frequency. So if indeed, oh, I'm dropping my thing, I'm looking at the camera, not at me. If indeed the part has been with somebody for a really long time, and through lifetimes even, and it's sort of gathered or connected with other consciousness. This is a good example. You have a
It
mom.
would have been easier just for me to run through a part that we didn't get time for last time, and I could have like totally been on display, and we could have just gone through it. Now you're like, okay, wait, how do I describe? Because it is hard to describe something without really experiencing it.
That's true.
But first,
Well, I mean,
I want to cut in with the question I get
thing,
from my clients.
okay, because the thing about going through a part with you right now, which I would be open to, is you never know how long it's going to take.
I know, I was thinking that we are
right.
We don't want a really long video.
We're really, and I really don't want to end a session where the part hasn't agreed to reintegrate and we're stuck and you got to go on to something else.
I know.
Right? So
question I get the most. So as a massage therapist, and I do as a massage therapist and energy worker, I've known for a while that we are physical, emotional, and spiritual beings, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm able to work with a part of that on the table. I can work with the client's physical ailments and at some point some energetic ailments as well. But there's always that emotional component that if they don't heal that part of themselves, then I could do an insane amount of things on the table and we'll never fully heal. Like we're just going to keep working on the same things over and over again if they don't do that emotional side of it. So I've done a lot of emotional work through being in this field for over 15 years and the journey I've taken. Before I started working with you on this, by the way, what's it called? Questing?
Self-questing.
It reminds me of like D&D. Like I feel like we should bring up some dice.
Right.
How long has this been with me and roll a dice, right?
Right.
Before I've been doing this with you in this past year, I was with John McMullen's and Journeys of Wisdom, and it's very much the same thing, parts of self, and it's a different angle. And I kind of felt like, okay, now I'm ready for something else, go a little bit deeper. And so I've really appreciated this as an extension of my journey into self, because it's a quest. It's going on an adventure with a rogue. And
it is.
No. So the question I get from my clients the most is like, and I'll share kind of what I say before you answer, is how can this work? I mean, not the self-questing. Yeah, we get that. You can have a therapist session over Zoom as well. But how can the energetic, the crystal stuff work distance-wise when we're so far away from each other? And they're like, I don't think that would work. And I said, they're like, oh, it's probably just the placebo effect. And I said, before I tried that, I had 5 sessions of massage, myofascial release, and other types of massage. More than that, I think. I went to see the chiropractor maybe about 5 times as well. I had dry needling done. I had all this stuff on the physical. By the way, in the first session, we did have something physical. And then the rest of the session was emotional. And so I said, how could that be placebo? Why didn't the 5 massages work if it was just placebo? Why, and I said, on top of it, I couldn't drive for 2 weeks. I will take the placebo.
Yeah, right. Right. Well, and that's how I felt when I got my first biogeometry treatment, which I used a little bit on. It's like, I don't care if it's placebo. I don't have to go to the ER. I'm good. Right. And not to discount, our brain does a lot of stuff for us. Right. But the way that we work remotely is by having a witness. And a witness is done a couple different ways. How in olden days they would say, oh my God, a photograph steals your soul, right? Well, it doesn't. I mean, I don't know that it steals your soul, but your soul is in it. It's in your image. So I get a witness. So people who come from all over send me a headshot with nothing else in it, preferably against a blank background. That headshot, and I mean, if we were set up, maybe we can do this in a different interview and I'll set it up properly so you can see it. But when I have a headshot, if somebody's in person, I have them sign a small sheet of white paper and I have them rub it on their head, on around their face to get their oil on it. then they have the DNA on that witness. If they are not in person, if they, I've got people all over the United States. And so if they can't come to me, I don't want them mailing that kind of thing. They will send me a digital copy, a selfie, and then that doesn't work to use as a witness because there's compression waves coming off a computer or off an electronic device. So I print that up. I print up 2 of those, and then I can get the wavelength coming off their photo because it contains their essence, their energy, their field comes through that photo. And so by being able to measure the photo, then I can start to put corrections on and see how it affects their field. They can be on the other side of the earth. It doesn't matter. It's beyond time and space. It really is beyond time and space. So yeah, I've worked with people in England and right at this, and what's nuts is, okay, so person in England got their personal wavelength with the pendulum, right? And as soon as they say grab a supplement so we know if that's something that's working for them or whatever, oh my God, it's got to be beyond time and space because it immediately shifts their wavelength off the witness. So, and that's how you and I worked, right? With this crazy COVID stuff. And I have a new appreciation since I've started this with remote and what remote can do. So it's kind of cool. A little hard for us to grasp, I think, sometimes.
It can be. I just say you just kind of have to try it and see.
Yeah.
To see how you feel. And we've been getting some really deep work done on both.
Yeah.
I tend to use both at the same sessions. And I have an in-session planned finally in a month, right?
Yes. So, yeah, an in-person session in a month. Yes.
Then you can get my DNA.
And I probably will do that.
So how can people get a hold of you if they want to give this a try?
So my office number is 533-4220. It's 847-533-4220. And they can make an appointment there. I am this far away from launching a new website. And the name of that website is Cyndi's Wellness. So it's CYNDIS, Cyndi's Wellness.com. And it really is. We're breaths away from having it published, but I'm just kind of revamping things because I changed so much in the last 3 years or so that I really needed a reboot. And so generally I either use Zoom or FaceTime for calls so that we're seeing each other and seeing what's happening. And yeah, that's how they can get a hold of me. Email right now anyway is cdodick@gmail.com.
Perfect.
That's all of it.
Thank you. So I highly recommend to my clients who want to take a deeper dive into the emotional and energetic aspect of healing.
Yeah.
Again, she was just talking about, she can also do, she's trained in supplements and nutrition, and there's so many things that she's trained.
Lymphatic drainage, that's usually in person. We can work on the lymph remotely, but it's really helpful in person. Yeah.
So there's all these different aspects, but I highly recommend giving her a try to deepen your own wellness.
Thank you. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Always.